You never ask yourself a question, when did that start being scary? Well, if you're a play therapist, you start off at where it started being scary. So you get, when you meet the adult, you're like, I think I know what happened to you when you were a kid. Because I've seen this before. It's not an experience a lot of therapists get to have, and so it makes it a little weirder. It's how I got into this mess. So I'm going to tell you first kind of about brain development. And I'm not going to get too crazy about it. It's going to take about 30 minutes. It'll make very clear sense to everyone. However, you have to understand how it's supposed to happen so that you can understand why something screwed up. Then you can understand why the psilocybin, which is the thing that we'll be talking about in the middle and end of this, how that fixes it. But otherwise, if I just tell you that you take the medicine and suddenly other things just get better, that really doesn't give you a lot of information. So we're going to start at the beginning and back to that. I'll talk a little bit about Prop 122. In Colorado, we passed Prop 122, which means psilocybin is legal, LSD is legal, MDMA is legal, ibogaine is legal. I don't think I'm missing anything. Any naturally occurring psychedelic is legal, and synthesis of it is illegal. You can grow and possess psychedelic drugs and give them away. You cannot sell them. So part of the process is we wanted therapists to be able to access the drug, use the drug to treat people, but what we didn't want is big pharma or somebody who has a luxury resort maybe failing said, okay, well, I'll just give away LSD. We'll like people to do sort of play music. Because that's how we got psychedelics shut down the first time. Let's see. I do a ton of work with PTSD and veterans. The Veterans Administration, which is usually incredibly slow to pick things up, is already doing psilocybin trials in their own labs. So the expectation is they'll probably be approving that for veterans in 18 months. The research shows some very clear findings that it helps people stop feeling that they're panicking all the time. And it induces what I would call a sense of compassion for self, which is not something you may have learned as a child. Moves us into our next thing I'll show you. It is okay to ask me questions. Is it okay to put your hand up and ask me a question? I'm happy to answer any question you have. First thing happens to you that is traumatic is you are born. You get pounded out to a 10-centimeter weep hole, head down, and you are expected to start breathing and doing all kinds of things that you did not have to do. We call that first trauma. We've tried. We have people give birth underwater. We've had not the whole person like underwater. We try and reduce the shock to the infant. But the reality is you come out sideways, you come out with the umbilical cord wrapped around your neck, and you were there. That was you. Now, you didn't have any words and you didn't have any, and you probably didn't understand at all what was happening to you. But most people, and if you go and watch the video, someone being born, it doesn't look fun for either party. Once you're out, your brain is a little lump of nerve tissue and fat, and it knows only how to do a few things. You stroke it up its cheek, it will attempt to latch onto whatever it is you've drug across its cheek. That's reptile brain. The other thing it knows is once you can see, which takes a little while, you're born with like 2200 vision, and everybody apparently is born with blue eyes. And by the way, before you come out, for a very long period, you're a girl. Everybody starts as girls and eventually turn into a boy. So there's lots of transition that's happening to you, real you. And there's a lot of things you have to learn. Now, in this trust and mistrust phase, for the first year, you're helpless. So if your parents are listening to you, and your mom's at home, you might get picked up and searched 5 or 6 times a day. Maybe if you're sick 5 or 6 times an hour. And what that trains your reptile brain to do is believe that if you are hurt or you are in need, something is going to happen that is good. That's all it can learn is from that pattern. Either the good thing happens or it doesn't. This is the beginning of their personality. Now, if your parents are opiate addicted, or they're mentally ill, you're going to have serious postpartum depression, or if you're one of the people who's born to neurodivergent parents, they may not react to your cries. And that brain will wire very differently. Because that brain believes that no matter how hard you cry, no one's coming. This is the beginning of anxiety. Now you will notice that at this time, You don't even know your name. Nothing. You have no language. All you have is emotion. I'm trying to tell you right now that the person that you think you are is your roommate. It's something that was constructed, and I'm going to show you exactly how. Now, this is Erickson's child development. It's very common in psychology, super simple to understand. So you learn mistrust or trust first. Then from 2 to 3, you don't really have a personality. People like to love their children. I have 2 boys. I remember them at that age. Like, oh, I'm so cute. He calls me dad. He looks at me. It's all bullshit. It's mirror neurons. If I smile at the baby, he smiles back. Yes. Now I found this out with my child. It's having gas or something. Seriously, I can't understand why. And he frowned at me. And I didn't realize what's wrong. And then he's looking at me and his face crumples down like a little fist. He just bursts into tears. I'm like, he starts to cry. My mother, who happened to be in the room, said to me, stop scowling at him. And I'm like, he stopped. I went, shit, I'm supposed to know that. I'm a therapist. But this, if you're raised around somebody who's super anxious, and you're trying to feed yourself because you watch them feed you, don't make a mess. Well, you've taught the child something. Try. Someone might panic you, try to stop you. You learn to doubt that you're doing it right. And you learn some shame. This is the beginning of shame. Now, many clients I run into have a serious problem with shame, right? And they can't seem to get past it. A lot of things I've talked about it, drank about it, poured about it. I did all the things I could do to make myself know about it, and it won't go away. I can't talk myself out of it. Well, no shit, honey. When you got it, you didn't have language. So that's the problem, trying to work through these baseline, non-verbal traumas. And there are a lot of them. By the time you're 3 or 4, not only are you doing the mirroring thing, you want to do whatever they're doing, but you're willing to take risks. You know, you're going to try something. This is when you get your kids who are climbers. They try and climb up a bookcase and terrorize their parents because the bookcase could fall and get crushed. And if the parents freak out about that, you shouldn't do that. Now, there's a movie called Footnote. Some of you may have seen it. I'm sure it's an ancient movie by this point, but it's about this little somewhat crippled fish. And his dad doesn't want him swimming out into the open ocean. And when he tries to do it in the movie, the dad fish just freaks out and literally screams at him, "You can't do this!" The parent is frightened. I've seen this happen in department stores. I've seen it happen in kids run towards the street. There's a reasonable reaction on the part of a large adult primate to attempt to save this little moron who behaves like a drunk from walking in front of a moving car. Except what the adult doesn't realize, if you do that over and over, if you do it once, it's fine. Really, if you do it 50 times, you're fine. But if it's every then you raise up a child who won't try shit. Now, this is a very important part in your development because this is the beginning of the prefrontal lobe. Prior to this, the prefrontal lobe is not being used. There's no impulse control, there's no math, there's no abstract reasoning, nothing. You grow into that by being stressed. If you give someone, the initiation will result in someone. It's very hard to initiate. You ever run into people who have ideas but they can't ever fucking do them? So, if we look at my client, comes to me and says, "Vince, I can't try anything. God, if I do try, failure feels like I'm dying." I'm like, "Shit, I fail 4 times a day, bro." I said, "Dad, you're having a bad day." Then I know I'm probably dealing with somebody who had a little bit of language at 3 or 4, but no comprehension. And that's what you get from playing with kids. They'll say anything. They don't know what they're saying. They'll say anything they hear on TV. They'll hear everything that comes out of your mouth. And this is another thing that's important for those of you who have children at whatever age, I say, sure, a lot. Whenever somebody asks me a question, sure. Now, I don't know that I'm saying it's a noise, it's a filler noise. So one day I asked my child a question. He looked at me and went, sure. Like, where'd you learn that? My mother was ever helpful. She goes, do you hear what comes out of your mouth? 5 to 6. So this is a huge fucking punch to the kids whose parents don't get along or are divorced, raised in domestic violence, or you're just raised in one of these things where you're taking care of adults you arrive at school. Now suddenly you're surrounded by your peers, except they act like when they fail, they don't seem to give a shit. They break the ground, they wander off the next round. Mm-hmm. They lose a race, not being the fastest thing doesn't seem to crush them. Getting tested or having, and I remember this from my own experience, going up to the board to do some math. I don't know if they're still doing that to children, I suspect they are, and it will keep my office filled with anxious adults for the rest of my life. So what happens is kids that get here realize they can't compete because most of their skills are in being small and quiet and not upsetting the adult. So they don't know how to compete. They don't know how to be loud, they don't know how to take up space. Some of the kids are hyper-compliant. There are some of you out here, the A students, people who never got a B. The idea of getting a B is like falling into the fucking abyss. Right? Those are the dudes that overcompensated. But the only problem with that, of course, is you're getting your self-esteem from a process. You constantly need to be tested and told you're okay. I was like, I got a D. When's lunch? 12 to 18 is adolescence. In fact, all the way to 25 really is we have identified as adolescence. This is where if you learn to mistrust that your needs are going to be met, if you're like, this is not going to work well. And you've learned that trying something and trying to be independent is a source of shame and doubt and causes you to feel bad about yourself. If you try things and you feel like if you fail, it would be death, and you feel inferior, by the time you get here, you're the kid, if I hand you a red Solo cup or a joint or anything, you're going to drink it. You will do whatever it takes to belong. And this is a time of tremendous angst, even for well-balanced children. So these people get drunk, they try on being a jock, or they try on being a racist, or they try on being whatever I'm going to say it correctly, emo, I say emo all the time. And the teenagers I work with are like, why are you so old? So the deal is, they don't have a self. I'm Vince Bruno, I know who the fuck I am. They don't. So they'll be whatever makes you happy. When you get a little more than that, you don't know who you are, and you just exist to make girls happy and boys happy, depending upon where your orientation is. You're completely isolated. Because the only way you can get attention is by hurting, and you are incapable of intimacy, because you have to be connected to yourself and like yourself enough for me to share with you, the fuck up in you. It's the fuck up in you. That's connection. But these kids on this side, they learn either avoidant connection, or insecure connection, we call it attachment, avoidant or insecure. Avoidant is, I like you, can't really be around. Anxious is, I like you, the longer I'm around you, there's a shot clock running, and I'm getting more and more anxious, and I'm thinking more and more, what am I doing wrong? Those people can't ever have peace. Secure attachment is when you can sit around somebody in silence and just enjoy their company and not feel anxious that you need to do something for them. And when I tell that to people who have never felt it, they look at me like I've got hanging out on my forehead. So if it goes well, you end up pretty confident, reasonably willing to do something, taking initiative and screwing things up is pretty cool. I screw a lot of stuff up and I get better at it. You feel like you can do stuff and compete. Yeah. I don't imagine that I can beat Patrick. I have never imagined that I could beat Patrick in the gym. Based on our relationship, the first time I met him, the muscle off, which I worked on for 18 months, and finally had mastered. And I went showed it to the prick. I said, listen, this is how you do it. Don't be upset if it takes you a while. He says, okay. I said, now I have to punch you in the dick. And that was when Patrick and I knew we understood one another, and then I never needed to compete with him in this environment. And I'm pretty cool with that because I'm reasonably securely attached to myself. I don't need to be better than anybody else. So this is brain development. Now, I'm going to read off a little list and ask you guys to count up how many of these questions apply to you. And the thing I'm reading you is an ACEs quiz. Adverse childhood experiences are a leading indicator that you ended up with some experiences on this side, and if you have enough of them, 4 or more, will have a serious impact on your mental and emotional health, as well as your physical health. People in this course are 20% more likely to get cancer, and their lifespans are 20 years shorter. So, you guys don't have to yell the answers out loud, just keep counting in your head. Or if you want, I'll give you little things that you can write down. All right. Did you feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, or had no one to protect or take care of you? And if you do, then you got a 21. Did you live with anybody that was depressed, mentally ill, or attempted suicide? You got that one. You have 2 strokes. Did your parents or the adults in your home hit, punch, or threaten to harm one another? If you did, now you got 3. Did you live with anyone who had a problem with drinking or using drugs, including prescription drugs? I would say that my grandmother could drink a case of beer in front of me. This would be perfect age. No one said, hey, I will talk to you right now that I'm doing my presentation. I'll go back. That's my life. We answered fine. Let's see. Did a parent, adult in your home ever swear at you, insult you, or put you down? That'd be fine. 6. Did you live with anyone who went to jail or prison? That's I'm sorry, that's the swear at you. Number 8. Did a parent or adult in your home hit or physically abuse you? Yeah, it's different if they're abusing one another. If they're abusing you, you get a mark for them. Did you feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were special? Did you experience unwanted sexual contact, such as fondling, oral, anal, vaginal intercourse, or penetration? Now, here's a terrifying statistic. The females in this room, by the time they are 18, 2/3 of them had already had this happen to them. It is like a standard adverse childhood experience for females. So we're like here, 5, 6, 7, 8. In jail and prison. Drinking drugs. Depressed. People swearing at you, adults hitting or kicking you. Oh, so, some of you have a number in your head right now. If that number is greater than 4, you need therapy. Guaranteed. Because you have been exposed during your developmental phases to abuse. Now, most people don't know that because fish don't know their way. I certainly didn't know that my uncle was crazy. I just thought he was mean, just like several other people in my family. Didn't seem unusual to me. And I would describe what was happening in my home to other children in school or to other adults, and they would look at me like this. And I rapidly learned not to tell those stories. Although some of them were funny, they were great, you get a lot of attention because they were so outlandish, but I began to realize that I wasn't being raised by normal people who say me nervous. So, if in your life you've had these kind of experiences and if you grew up poor, I was trailer parks and apartments. We didn't own a home until I was 14 and we lost that almost immediately. So, if you grew up in that kind of instability, chances are you need some help. But we don't really advertise that, right? So, what does this have to do with psilocybin? Psilocybin, when you take it into your system, and LSD works very similarly, it causes plasticity in your brain, in a part of your brain that hasn't been plastic since you were about 18 months old, your hippocampus. Now, if you all ever played peekaboo, baby, it stops working at about 18 months. Because at that point, part of their brain that remembers things is on. So it doesn't need to smile at your dumbass every time that you're there. It's like, oh, you're still there, you're just hiding your hands. Any bad shit that happened to you, and any real bad shit that happened to you for about 2 years after that, there's no way for you to describe it. Because you are about 56 years old. I can't tell you what happened today. So what the psilocybin does is it creates plasticity and neuron generation in that area. What that means is that a part of your brain that has never grown since you were 18 months old suddenly is ready to learn things again. And you become similar during the trip to your 2-year-old self. Now this happens in waves, and I don't know how many of you have taken the trip. But at the bottom of the wave, you're like, fuck. And you're lucky if you can get that, right? Something. You say some noise. And then an interesting thing happens. You go way back up into the intensity, way over here. You're not thinking at all. In fact, the thing you thought was you isn't there. The thing that thinks and tells you if you're wearing the right clothes, if the bow tie is right, if your shoes match your belt. That thing. It's constantly saying, if you parallel park correctly, I'm parallel. It's good. It's not good. All it does constantly is say it's good or not. It's on or it's off. It's on. It's good. You might just get silence. No approval. You've simply avoided negativity. But if it's programmed to be very picky, well then every time you do it wrong, it will savage you. So one of the first things I teach people, clients, particularly when I'm doing psilocybin therapy, is you damn well better be calling yourself by your fucking name in your head. Because otherwise you'll say, that asshole, you're a fucking moron. Won't come out of my mouth if the first word out of my mouth is Vincent. Vincent? You broke that. And then I relax a little bit. Many people don't call themselves a name in their head. You're just that asshole. And the voice in your head, if I talk to you the way you talk to yourself, you would file a restraining order against me. Think about how you talk to yourself. If I talk to you that way, you'd be swinging on me, and who would blame you? So the psilocybin lets you get back to this, where the shame started. And what you will feel is intense emotion. It will feel terrible because what you have done throughout your life, if you learn to mistrust things, you stop having positive expectations. If you learn without shame, you stop feeling pride and satisfaction. So every time one of these events happens to you, you crank down your emotions. And if joy is out here and despair is out here, think of -10, +10, you're a 3 to 3, 2 to 2 person, constricted. And when people come to me and they're constricted, they say, Vince, I can't feel happy. A happy thing happened. My kid took my hand, and all I felt was numb. Now they know something's wrong, but they don't know why. I know why. Because you train yourself not to be happy. because the fall from happening is fucking awful. So you just don't get that happen. And if we put the psilocybin into your system, what happens is you suddenly develop awareness and compassion. One of the things that I like to do in my sessions is we start them off with a licensed massage therapist who will give you the medicine you'll be given, never charge for. And we like to get their hands on you. And what I'm learning through this process is that girls like to store lots of stress in their feet. And if I lay hands on you during, we always have an agreement that I'll be laying hands on you during the session. I will be touching your feet. I'll be touching your shoulders. I'll be touching your head. I'll be touching your hands. These are the only areas that I need to interact with. Many people, when they're standing, they will brace. They will grab the ground with their feet, and they will be rigid. This is because they're anxious. That when they're doing it, it's very autonomic. But the more they do it over and over and over again, they'll feel like that loop. And pretty soon you can't feel your feet. And everything feels detached and numb. And then you are not connected to your body. Because your body, you're storing stress in it, all it is doing is everything inside of it to be still. When I make awareness of this with people, and I rub their feet, rub their shoulders, it's a trip which lasts about 3 hours, maybe 4. I tell them, move your body. And when I do, it sounds like cellophane. Doesn't matter who it is. Now, the other thing we notice in the trip, psilocybin does, is it will create a lot of slop. It was a surprise to me, it would be my first trip, and in every subsequent one, the amount of mucus that I was going to generate. There's crying. You don't know you're crying, but you begin to cry, and this is because we've heated up the hippocampus, and we're creating toxins, melting your whole neuron chains. So, if every time you do something, you get ignored, neuron chains. One time, I didn't get any food for a month. So what do I expect? I'll go back when I'm a kid, go get a box or a balloon, take it to mom. Mom's no opiate addict, so mom can't do that. So the neuron chain is, no matter what I do, no one is going to appreciate it. We'll love that. Suddenly, mine looks up, usually at the bottom of the wave, it says something really original, like, I just don't like myself. I'm like, yeah, probably not. Then at the bottom, the next one might be, I really don't reward me. I'm like, yeah. Every time your mind kind of recoalesces at the bottom of that wave, your conscious mind learns something about you it didn't know. In order for that to happen, I have to take the conscious mind off the stage, and sit regularly. Now, some people will tell you, take 7 grams. I've taken 7 grams. That's a shit show, kids. At the bottom of the wave, I'm holding on to the carpet of my living room, wondering what the fuck I did to myself. At the top of the wave, I'm not talking to God or anybody. I'm holding on for dear life, while the psilocybin is expanding me out to a full range of emotional motion. 10-10. But I gotta tell you, when I landed after that, when I didn't come away with any great illumination, other than I should hide the rest of the psilocybin when I'm taking the psilocybin, because apparently I don't make good decisions. Shit, maybe that's what I'm supposed to learn there. I used about 3 grams, and I'll tell you why. So, I have a little diagram over here of something called IFS, Internal Family Systems. It's a popular modality for the work that I do, and before we had psilocybin, it was kind of the best way I could get you to understand what was happening in your head and help you make changes. So, I already said you existed at day 1. That's the self. That's you. It's a real you. It doesn't have a name, and it doesn't have language. It doesn't have to like boys or like girls. It doesn't have to like bicycles. It doesn't have to be American. It's just a big old lump of emotion and consciousness. There's part of you that I believe will continue after this particular show is over, carrying whatever karma or lessons it has learned. That's you. Most of you treat yourself like you hate it. Now, the world wants you to do some things like wear pants and show up work. So now you have developed in your personality 3 colors. The manager is the thing that tells you it's okay to fold the laundry. Just fold the laundry. Just keep folding the laundry. It's kind of encouraging most of the time. Helps you do difficult tasks. It will make you do stuff. Now, if your parents were encouraging and supportive, the manager's probably a pretty happy guy. Yeah, you probably should do that and feel better if the trash is out. If your parents were nervous and anxious, your manager is a lot more like, what are you going to fucking do? Which brings anxiety for many of my clients, because the voice in their head is screaming at them that any minute now they are doomed. Now, this creates an emotional reaction, which is then stored in the exile. Now, the exile is where shame and trauma, that's the container for that. So every time you went to school and you didn't get as good a test or you weren't as fast as the other kids, you felt some shame and trauma. If your manager's a nice guy, that probably isn't too terrible, and you just kind of live with the fact you're not as fast as Patrick. We'll pick on him today. Right? Now, if this thing gets too excited and the feelings get too big, that's when we develop a firefighter. None of you remember if you had a binky, but it's the first way you soothed yourself was sucking on a rubber nipple. I could soothe myself with alcohol. I did it for 20 years. I tell you, it did not improve me. The firefighter is in charge of keeping the exile quiet. It doesn't matter if you use alcohol, drugs, sex, relationships, buying things. Don't have a good feeling? Go buy a BMW. By the way, that did actually work for almost a year.
The BMW?
Yeah. Yes, the whole thing worked for many years. So, your firefighter may have coping skills that are good coping skills, like I'm going to go to thin play, and I'm going to beat the demons out of me. When I went on the floor afterwards, I'll be like, oh, I earned dopamine. I got stronger, I got more flexible. So, relatively positive coping mechanism. There are lots of other bad coping mechanisms, and you probably learned them from your parents. Because guess what you're mirroring when you get upset? This is not a conscious decision on your part. It is an autonomic response because your reptile brain learns from patterns. It's why you can tie your shoes without thinking about it, why you can drive a clutch. It's not stressful anymore. It's why sometimes you drive home from work and you do not remember driving. Because your reptile can drive your car, stop at red lights. It's really good at keeping you alive. However, it is also the roommate that doesn't talk to you about the decisions it's making. So you don't get to feel calm from somebody who makes you anxious. You just don't get to. So if one of your parents is the people you're weirdly attached to, or you have a sibling or an uncle who just behaves in a way that makes you feel crazy, that's not you. That's the machine you're riding around in, reacting to a pattern. It's like, that's dangerous. If it's dangerous, you're getting adrenaline. If you're getting adrenaline, you're going to stop thinking. And you're going to start reacting. This is why you wanted to, coming up to the holiday season, people are going to get rooms that people they don't are comfortable around. And then they're going to do a soothing skill. Like, oh, in the Midwest, and you only have one soothing skill. What is it? Good. Amen.
It's always good.
I married a girl from Wisconsin, and I thought I blended in. I was an alcoholic. I did not feel like an alcoholic around people from Wisconsin. I felt perfectly moderate in my drinking. I was not. So, this thing forms and will tell you to stay in situations you shouldn't. Because it really doesn't know how bad it hurts you. This thing here operates off of pattern get upset, you're going to go get the cookie. By the way, I'm a cookie guy all the time. Now, you can replace the cookie with something better to eat, like fruit. I'm a big fruit guy. You can replace the booze with weed. I don't have a problem with people drinking THC. It's an analgesic and an anti-inflammatory. However, anything can be abused, right? You can abuse anything, whether it's liquor, weed, the gym. If these things aren't in balance, then they will constantly torment the self, meaning the exile just gets higher pressure and higher pressure. When it reaches 10, manager can't manage it. The firefighter can't sue. And that's when the exile and the self get together and you start making really interesting decisions about your life. Some people call that a breakdown. Now, if I put you in a position where you're so stressed and you're overwhelmed your coping mechanisms, you can't manage yourself, this is not good. People do bad things like kill themselves, they kill other people, they just make really terrible fucking decisions. But the psilocybin is something very interesting. It sends the manager into a timeout box, and the firefighter goes with him. You can't move. You're on my couch. I blindfolded you. It's a nice sleep mask. I've gone through several iterations. I got the real fancy one that women use for their lashes. Now people seem to like them. I put you under a heavy glass blanket. Glass beads in the blanket if you're one of those people who likes to feel hugged or crushed. Suddenly you have an intense feeling of calm. If you're one of those people that can't stand that, I tell you, I'd be like, and I don't need to get the fuck off, right? We'll give you a much smaller, like some people like the fluffy light stuff. It's been my experience in the trip, you're gonna have a neurological event. Those things look different. Some people are yawners, some people are freezers, right? All of a sudden you can tell when they're tripping hard, you're just like, I'm cold. It's 72 degrees in the room. I am sweating and probably crying, right? I'm like, you're cold, okay, we're gonna fix this for you. What is happening in that moment is you have created a situation where the psilocybin has gently removed the manager or the firefighter from the situation, and now the self and the exile are talking directly. I refer to this as the emotional knife fight phone booth. Because now you get to feel the feelings that the conscious mind was telling you not to feel. There are many of you that overthink things. You decide, I simply shouldn't feel that way. I feel guilty about feeling that way. I don't like feeling that way. That's your conscious mind telling you to ignore warning signs from yourself. If you walk into a room with someone, maybe it's a first date, maybe you've dated them a while, maybe it's your husband, and your stomach starts to hurt, it's not gas. That's a whole other brain out there, and it runs from patterns. And if the pattern with this person is that you don't feel safe with them, your body will send you a message. Like, hey, get the fuck away from that. Do we listen? No. We'll have another drink. Will you not a cookie? I love the smile girls put on. I've never seen it before, except, and then I saw Harley Quinn, and I was like, oh shit. Every woman at the family reunion. It's like, they will kill us all. Don't get hurt for that. But they stay in situations where they're not comfortable because both the manager and firefighter are bullying the exile. Psilocybin stops that. And you get to feel just how miserable some of these situations are. And then a weird thing happens to the manager. It says, that's not good for us, which is a thought that they had never had. That's a whole new thought for you to have. That being around certain people in your family, certain relationships, job, may not be good for you. Once you achieve this awareness, it cannot be lost. It will bother you until you stop it. And that's the amazing thing about psilocybin and addiction, is that once a manager has figured out that the firefighters giving you toxins, both of them stop doing it. People who can't quit chewing, some of them just stop chewing. Now I use chew because it is more addictive than heroin. Cigarettes are also more addictive than heroin. I've smoked cigarettes, and I will tell you that that is a stone cold bitch the whole way. And for people who, once you make these parts of your brain plastic, once I take you back to a 3-year-old and 2-year-old, and then nurture you, your need to soothe changes. Your tolerance for upset changes. You become more resilient. You're like, I'm upset, but I don't need to drink. I'm upset, but I don't need to smoke. I'm upset, but I don't need to scream and yell. The other piece of this, obviously, is I'm upset and I'm not fucking staying here. And that will create big problems in those relationships where those people expect you to be small. They expect you to be private. Easy to take advantage of is what I like to call it. They like it when you're easy to take advantage of. However, the psilocybin will change that because you will develop self-empathy, self-respect, and you will stop letting your manager tell you that you have to wear a certain kind of clothing in order to be popular. Or I have to be kind to someone who is demeaning me because I need this job. You won't be able to do it anymore. So, what happens in my office is we identify what the problem is, which is to say you come in and you say, I'm miserable all the time. Most of my clients are veterans, so they have all PTSD and hypervigilance. Many of the people who have not served in the military have PTSD and hypervigilance. We figure out that that's the problem. We then do an instrument called the spectrum. It is the indice of psychopathology. You do it online, answer some questions for me, and it teaches me about how you are experiencing your pain. Do you avoid it? Are you a super avoidant person? People avoid things like loud bars. Now, for many of you, that may have been something you grew up with, because we're in the Midwest. Going to a bar where it is loud, having a beer is quote-unquote a safe place. I have hypervigilance. Loud places with lots of activity make me anxious. You will never find me in a bar where people are behaving erratically and being loud. I know they're having a good time. I'm in a state of terror. So once we figure out, is it loud noises? Is it crowds? A lot of my folks, it's driving down the road and a piece of trash blows across the road. They're not in good space in their head. They can't be stuck in traffic. They have to be able to drive. They've been in many situations where if you're stuck in traffic and you're not moving, that means that someone is about to be killed. So when they come to me, we have this spectrum and say, okay, you're doing a lot of avoiding. The other thing that's terrible is re-experience. Now, everybody has done something stupid. Everybody has done something stupid in front of a lot of people. And when that happens, there's an intense feeling of embarrassment and shame. Right down front. Now, some people disassociate, so they don't get to have an experience. They just go somewhere in their head until the thing is over. I'm talking really sad. And then they walk away from the incident until something remembers them about it. And like, oh, that's a reminder. And then suddenly, all that shame and guilt and horror that they didn't feel at the incident is there. And it's in the middle of Sam's Club, Costco. And for some reason, this person now is behaving irrationally about the fact they can't get avocado. And they're like, I don't know why this keeps happening to me. And it doesn't happen once. It happens over and over and over because you never process the original incident. So guess what happens on the psilocybin? You don't get a choice. As a treatment professional, I'm going to give you lots of instrumentation. I'm going to spend some time with you beforehand to figure out what makes your top tick, right? Because I want to know what scares you, I want to know what bothers you, I want to watch you twitch. Because that's the stuff I'm very gently going to go into when you're under the influence. If you're a re-experiencer, which is the, doesn't bother me what happened, but afterwards I relive it, like I you're going to bed at night, you have to relive what happened in 8th grade, and you're like, oh my God, I'm enraged about this thing that happened for maybe 40 years ago. That's what you're experiencing. It's terrible. You're literally suffering something that has already happened, and it's almost impossible to stop. It's usually accompanied by something called perseveration, which is when I pick a topic and I will not stop thinking about it. The psilocybin stops that. Because what we get to do is have intense emotion that goes along with the original incident that we disassociated out of so we could survive. It's a very common sexual assault, or physical assault. We get to have that feeling, and we get to connect the event to the feeling, and then the next time we walk by the trigger, nothing happens. Because our brain, our manager now knows, oh, we've dealt with it. We don't need to revisit it. So it's very helpful for people who do really terrible re-experiencing, very upset, people who have to disassociate under stress. That's the person who you talk to, and they can't hear you, or if they're talking to you and pressuring you, and they ask you, what did I say? Are you talking to me? Like me yelling at you for 15 minutes. Really? You want to see somebody get pissed off? Have them yell at you for 10 minutes, and then you look at them straight on and say, I didn't hear you. Anybody done that? Sometimes we disassociate in weird low stress situations, like work. Someone's talking to you, and we just water it off in our head. So people bring these things to me, and I say, okay, we're going to have a lot less of that, because the psilocybin is going to help you stay present in the moment, because the current moment isn't so terrible. It's the fact that you are bored, triggered, hungry, tired, confronted with somebody who speaks to you like an angry parent, confronted with somebody who's a victim. Let me talk about the aggressive victim for just a moment. This is a common problem with mental health. I have decided that it's a tremendous show of disrespect to me for you to have ponytails. Now, because you've had ponytails, I can call you a bit of a body. The aggressive victim will set a reasonable standard for behavior. You have to come to our house over the holidays and be nice to your uncle, whoever the fuck it is, or aunt, whoever it is. And when you don't want to do that, now it's okay for them to say, you're the reason we have problems in this family. Anybody got a guilt tripper like that running around in their lives? See, smiles. Some of us might be the guilt tripper. We may have been taught to do that and wonder why we are alone. Well, why everybody who comes to us is angry and resentful. And fish don't know their way. So the aggressive victim does not understand the way they're interacting with people is abusive. It's just the way they were trained. So the nicest thing I think about psilocybin at this point is it creates a certain amount of compassion for yourself first. I shouldn't do that to me. And then you cannot help but begin to have compassion for the person who was abusing you. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go there and be abused. You just know now why they're fucked up. That is part of not taking it personally. If you understand that the crazy uncle didn't like everybody and had a master's degree in math and was just mean, had autism, and couldn't be around people, but he didn't know it, so he forced himself to, which meant he was mean to us because he couldn't understand us. And it would have been kinder of him and us to not make him come. But we made him come. We made him come to the family that he had to come, or he would have been guilt tripped. So a big part of psilocybin is it pulls you back and gives you perspective, right? You're right here on the problem. You're like, it's enormous and I can't sit around it. Psilocybin pulls you going, oh shit, it's Jared. Oh, I could have just stepped to the side. I feel silly now, but not ashamed. And that's the difference between what a lot of therapy does is force you to confront something and you're immediately going to feel shame about it. You can't help it. It was installed at what age? 2. But now I have a magic fucking lightsaber. It's crazy. First time I did it with somebody, I'm like, and they tell us, you're not allowed to make this promise, so this is not a fucking promise. I made 5 months of progress in 4 hours. The person made connections after the session, because once we do our primary session, I let you cook for a day, and the next day after, 10 o'clock in the morning, we check. What do you notice? How do your feet feel? How do your hands feel? How does your body feel? Are you connected to it now? That's big for girls. Members. And people begin to make connections, and they'll say, you know, Vince, I left my keys on my car. I walk away from it because I have 3 children. And normally when that happens, I panic. I lost the keys to the car. Now this is an emergency. Out of curiosity, how do you know when something's an emergency? When's the first sign for you? How do you know if you're visually looking around the world that you're seeing an emergency? By the way, then you're like, oh no, Vince, when I feel it in you, that's probably an emergency. How do you know, looking out the world, that there's an emergency?
People look worried. There's chaos.
What does it look like? If you're seeing an emergency, how can you tell it's an emergency? Inside, how do you know something's an emergency?
The environment gets quiet.
You've had a dissociator. How do you know something's an emergency?
Notice abnormal behavior.
Say that.
Abnormal behavior.
Abnormal behavior.
People who are acting in a way that doesn't make sense in the situation, whether it's an extreme or another.
Excellent. Now, I asked this to get you thinking about what an emergency looks like because I can define it for you. I use DALE as the acronym. Dale Earnhardt is the gentleman I generally refer to. He's called the Intimidator. And his fun time activity was to drive up behind you at 144 miles an hour when you're about 143 and a half at the back of your bumper, just to let you know he was there. And then when you were like, pop, he'd drive around you. It worked. He won a lot of races and eventually died. He fired right against the wall. I believe it says his car was spinning. He was laughing. I think he was like, ah, this is coming. So, D is for death. Someone is dying in front of me. There's usually some blood involved. It's not as loud as you think. It's happened before me. And usually by the time you're dying, I'm pretty quiet. Very rare. She's like, I can use, I didn't need that visual, thanks, Vince. Ambulance or arrest? I feel like I gotta call 911. That feeling, the action. The police or the fire department need to come. L, loss of limb or sense. If you are carrying part of your body in your hand and you should not be able to carry it in your hand, oh, look at her, she's like, this is bad stuff. And we should probably go to step A, ambulance or arrest, let's call somebody. And E is something most people in this room may not have experienced, but I have on several occasions. Enough. Enough food, enough water, or enough shelter to survive the next 36 hours. I've been in small craft in a very bad squall in the North Atlantic. I will tell you that 12-foot high iron gray waves in the purple sky is the kind of thing that tells a reptile it's time to begin. Just sit there on the boat going, this is about to kill me or it's not. At the top of the mountain, we have a place called Devil's Playground. It's a giant iron plate. And it gets more lightning strikes during a storm than any reasonable person. I've been trapped up there. The poor judgment on my part coming down the mountain alongside. Cloud comes around the corner, and you're running in a lightning field. Your buttons are humming. My hair, which is not the best hair in the world, is standing straight up. Didn't do anything for it. Look, this is a fucking emergency. Now, most people will feel like a lot of things are an emergency that just aren't. Public speaking feels like an emergency to many people. When that panic situation happens, any kind of conflict, any kind of disturbance, people are like, this is an emergency. And they freeze. I'm like, they got your Most people are wrong. Right? Now, it has taken years of training with veterans for me to develop this strategy and this cognitive behavioral therapy. I say if you're having a thought, question the thought. Is it really an emergency? Run it through the protocol. It really is helpful with hypervigilance. The thing I just taught you works if you take a deep polyvagal breath. Hold that bad boy for about 4 seconds. I'd say this is not an emergency, but I certainly thought that up. Now, so you're calm. You're able to deal with the conflict. If you have hypervigilance, where you were taught that shit is not going to go well, that any conflict feels like an emergency. So for the rest of you, like out here, if you have anxiety, psilocybin kills that. Done. You can't feel emergent if you have emotional resilience. If you're like, well, I feel really sad, I feel disappointed, wow, this really sucks, you never panic. But if the stop wall is right here and you can't go any further, that energy has to go somewhere. It's going to go to anxiety every time. And if your anxious person freezes, you will freeze. And you will feel intense internal rage later when you remember the incident because you have not processed the assault of whoever it was, even if it was your uncle, saying some misogynistic bullshit, or an aunt who can't possibly appreciate anything and has to pick on everybody, right? If you get confronted with that, you don't do anything about it. And then later, and sometimes if you're in the right family, it's after 3 or 4 beers, somebody goes over and punches Uncle Bob. I'm getting laughs from people like, no, that's a distinct possibility. So, one of the things that psilocybin does is it enables your exile to dump all the pressure from putting up with Uncle Bob or putting up with whatever trauma you went through. And there are people in this room who have been assaulted. There are people in this room, I'll guarantee you, that someone has tried their best to hurt them. And that person survived it. Where's it stored? In the exile. When does it come out? When you're tired, when you're hungry, in the middle of the night. My favorite is the 3 a.m. wake up. Wake up and you're like, I am enraged. So, when we run into that, one of the first things I think is, we're going to do a couple sessions. We're going to give you a spectrum to make sure you do not have schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is not something you want to add psilocybin. It's one of the few personality disorders that that doesn't help. Most of the rest of them, major depression, it'll absolutely lighten the load on that. Anxiety, we're not having any problems at all distributing that. Post-traumatic stress, I get fabulous results out of a single treatment. This is something that I would have to work with a veteran for 2 years on. And work with their family, and bring their kids in, because you can't just work on the veteran. The people around them have been damaged by the behavior, and they need to adjust. And you can fix it, but let me tell you, I could work the rest of my life and maybe fix 1,000. Or I could come psilocybin and fix 5,000. So, the medicine itself has been used for several thousand years. You can see Egyptian hieroglyphs, Mayan culture, Incan culture, Eastern medicine. All of them have various mushroom kind of remedies. So this isn't new. And what we're finding out is by far the most effective treatment for people who are just stuck with pre-verbal childhood trauma. All right. I'm done talking. So I wonder if any of you have questions about what I've said, like any kind of questions.
Vince, can you talk briefly about the length of the neuroplasticity after?
Oh, that's true. Okay, yes. So, if I give you psilocybin today, you and I do a 3.5 to 4 hour experience. We eat packaged up. We always feed you at the end because everybody's hungry at the end. Starving, right? Because you burn all the glucose in your brain. That plasticity that we have created doesn't just turn off when your trip stops. This is the thing that we got all excited about. Psilocybin lasts a minimum of 2 weeks, maybe as many as 3. LSD is also good for 2 to 3 weeks. The intensity of your experience predicts the length of your plasticity. Well, why do I need plasticity? Do you like learning languages? Because now it's going to be easier. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but these motherfuckers can pick up language pretty quick. All you need to say is motherfucker in front of them one time and mean it, and they have learned that word. So if you got Duolingo, try to learn Spanish for a couple of weeks, and you will find that it sticks. If you, in the morning, you're like, I just hate that I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is go punch my neighbor in the head. I wish I would kick him. Then you can work on changing that behavior. If you want to wake up in the morning and be nice to yourself and not wake up in a panic, this is how you can do it. Now, the interesting thing is, if I get you to change behavior, it takes 42 repetitions of that behavior before we get a good stick. Now with this, 5 steps. And another weird thing that's going to happen, is you won't hate it. Now you're trying to make a new habit, and you have to fight with yourself. That's because at this age you were taught trying new things means you're fucked. You're gonna look dumb. The ball's gonna hit you in the head. Whatever you do, they're gonna come over. You did it wrong. They're gonna overcoach you. Helicopter mom. Our moms. But plastic, everything is new. Like you're a 3-year-old. So you're like, sure, I can do 50 push-ups first thing in the morning. Why not? What it installs in your brain is playfulness. You become playful instead of resistant. So we're going to play a game. The game is in the morning I'm going to drink a thing of lemon water, and I'm going to eat something healthy, and then I'm going to move my body. And it feels like you're playing. When's the last time you felt playful? When's the last time you were flirtatious with yourself? When's the last time you said to yourself something really cool and you had a good giggle over it? And if the answer isn't today, then you're being mean to yourself. You're being indifferent. Like some kind of coworker. It's like, oh, are you here today? So, plasticity will last for several weeks, and we check in with the clients. It's very important. We do our 2 sessions prior to issue about schizophrenia and to set our intention. We do our session the day after we have our check-in. We wait 24 hours, we have another check-in. We cook over the weekend, if that's how that thing is, about 3-4 days. And in the next week, you get 2 more-hour sessions with me. Now, here's been my experience. I work with people, and sometimes it's like dragging these fucking guys out of the hole. Fight. Come on! Come on, Jesus, you fell back down there again? Alright, come on, guys. Know this shit. I come in, they're out of the hole. They're like, here, I'm going to tell you what I like about myself. You sit me down, they're like, I just figured out that, and you have all this insight. And for me, I just let that happen, because now, instead of you thinking with the brain that was trained not to try things, instead of you thinking with the brain that says, I'm just not good enough, all that shit's been reset. Now, I don't know if any of you work with spreadsheets. That was a lot of sadness. So in a spreadsheet, you have that personal value at the top of the sheet, and you put the number 100 in there or whatever. And then you can make all kinds of calculations off that initial value. Now, for humans, once we put the value in there, we couldn't change it. Psilocybin lets me change the value. So now I'm making a different value. Now, every belief you have that is based upon that trauma has to shift. And you will be very surprised at the new messages your manager is now sending to you, which is, I feel like working out. I feel like doing some homes. I feel like eating something good for me. And then yeah, I know, it's just, and I've watched it happen. People are like, I just don't go and talk to Bob. What I'll do about it, like, I don't care. I was like, that's really new for you. They're like, yeah, I'm starting to think I'm a narcissist. I'm like, no, you must let yourself not beat your face against something that is painful. You have great enough self-awareness that you want to hurt yourself. Now that lasts for 2 to 3 weeks. But you cannot revert. You can't go backwards. You can't unlearn what the psilocybin teaches you. Because no one's going to make you 2 years old and fucking ignore you anymore. That can't be done. So when psilocybin frees you of that neuron chain, when I say it melts it, that's why there's not. Everybody who does this with me needs a fucking shower afterwards. They're covered in sweat, they smell bad, and they feel great. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's a pleasant experience. It is not necessarily unpleasant, but if you are not used to having feelings, it can be quite shocking. The cool thing is you have a therapist with 15 years of fucking experience talking to you at the bottom of the wave and giving you a lot of noises that sound like this. That looked horrible, and you survived it. Now breathe. Now, if you're too far into the snot thing, that's breathe through your mouth, but I will help you regulate and redirect you at the bottom of the wave. At the top of the wave, I will be talking to you, but you will not be able to understand me because you do not have language processing. If you look at your phone, it will make no sense to you because you do not have abstract reasoning. It's a bunch of bright lights and you do not like looking at it. Try and watch TV, pretty miserable. As overdoses, you can watch a Lego movie and have a lot of fun. But we're not talking about hand for gram and an evening watching a Lego movie. We're talking about 3 grams, which is what we'd say is the entry-level hero dose. Now, we're going to pick on Patrick again. Some of my clients want it to hurt really bad. It has to be a very intense experience. That is not necessary. I've taken 7. I've taken 5. It's a 3 will absolutely create the neuroplasticity that will last for 2 weeks, and at a certain point, instead of you losing your mind gets to sit there and watch you do the work. And the really cool part is that when you come back, you realize, oh, that's my mind, that's not me. Because my name really isn't Vince Bruno. I was here before they told me what my name was. But that Vince Bruno guy, he's got a lot of expectations. And some of them are wrong. So every once in a while I have to tell him, no, we're not doing that. We don't like them. Well, you're supposed to like them. Well, I don't. No guilt. So I invite those of you that are interested in experimenting with this. One is don't take 3 grams and go fucking sit in the forest. I've done that. That's not therapeutic, but it can be enlightening. It's better to do it in the hands of a professional who has spent a little time getting to know you and can help you through the process, because ultimately you need someone to sit near you and attend to you in the way a nurse would. Make sure the person who can pursue this is someone with a license of some kind. Prop 122 is written for me. It's written for therapists who use psilocybin with their clients, and there is a licensing process that they're putting into position. And it is a licensed natural medicine sitter. And we don't have regulations for that. They're still building them. But I recommend that if you do seek this out, get it from a therapist, get it from somebody who's done it a few times. Make sure that they can tell you, oh yes, I've taken far too big a dose. I know. They should have personal experience with whatever the drug is, whether it's LSD, MDMA, or psilocybin, because it doesn't help you if they can't understand why you're behaving the way you're behaving. Just a show of hands, somebody out here done 3 grams? Well, there we go. How was it for you?
I had different experiences with each time. The one I just recently had, it was kind of a death and rebirth, and I was able to I was kind of laughing when you were talking about the chair thing, because I went into this portion of dealing with this one thing, and I made mine was like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, it's great, I can zoom out.
So, yeah, you're going to be out a little bit. Very nice. Now, was the experience, were you blindfolded or could you see? Yeah. So the blindfold is a big part of the process. Psilocybin, I want to turn you inwards. Psilocybin makes everything look cool. I went for a hike in the fall foliage in Colorado. I took way too much again. By the way, it's super nice there. And I like, the flowers are great, the rocks are great, everything is great. I mean, you have so much serotonin in your body, you're like, oh, look, a bear! Oh, I'm a pet. So, the blindfold forces you to turn inward. How about you? What was your experience like?
Experience like total connection, I guess you could say, and then total disconnection.
The way
No, two separate experiences.
connected at the top,
Like connection for the entire
thing, and then disconnection for the entire thing.
for other experience. And that one was awful.
When you said it was awful, what kind of awful? Like an emergency, or you just didn't like the way it felt?
Felt like the world turned its back on me.
Right. So you got to feel disconnection from your own self.
Yeah, I love trees, and the trees didn't love me. It was horrible.
Yes. Yes.
So upset.
So also they have a 3 or more? What about yours?
It was wild. I got a tour of my brain.
You did.
Like an elf in a cart who was like hot nuts. It was like you know those public tours with the guy on the bus with the microphone? It was like that, and you're just pointing out different parts of my brain, like the overthinking part.
Yeah. Awesome. And the interesting part is he's describing this, you were there, and afterwards you remembered that, and did it change how you were acting?
Yes.
Because you can't stop being aware of the fact you're overthinking now. Correct. Yeah. That's the cool thing. When we drive the self back away from the manager, the self looks at the manager and goes, what is that thing doing? Is that a unicycle? And what is it doing? And you had an experience?
The most recent one I didn't have a bunch of, but we were out in the middle of a field and there were no lights anywhere. The sky was so beautifully clear. And you just get completely lost in the stars. The next thing you know, you're like seeing sacred geometry and you downloaded this information that you never would have had otherwise. Completely mute, like could not talk for like 2 to 3 hours. And I do imagine what that had been like if there wasn't blindfold and all of that.
I would say you experienced a wonderful sense. Is that
Almost 4 grams.
how many?
You said almost 4.
Almost 4? Yeah. So looking into the night sky and turning your ego off means that you have the same wonder as a child. It's a beautiful feeling. It's really, I mean, I wouldn't tell you not to do that. That's about another feel of the starry sky. Do that shit. If you're looking to resolve trauma, no, I'm down with it. I'm thinking about going back and doing it for it's your goal. If you want to resolve trauma, though, you're right. You have to cut off your visual processing. You lose your verbal processing, and that's it. Your manager and your firefighter are not going to do shit without that information. And that's when you can make changes to your manager and your firefighter, because we're not changing yourself. Yourself was fine the whole time. It is what you taught yourself to be that fucked you up. When I said what you taught yourself to be, we're back here at really depressed, really anxious, they have PTSD. We were one of the many children that were raised in the last 20 years whose father had to go away, their mother had to go away, and fight a war over and over and over again. That certainly impacts people. If your parent was absent for whatever reason, that impacts people when you do this work. Yourself gets a chance to set the record straight. And I would certainly recommend that everybody do it, even if you don't have what you believe to be a problem or an issue. It will improve your connection to yourself anyway. It'll just make you more compassionate to yourself and to other people, less reactive. I think the term is laid back. I will tell you that I was not laid back as a young man, and I'm glad to be laid back now because I'll tell you, that's exhausting.
How does it work with kids, like 10 to 13 years old?
So interestingly enough, there's no experience and no research about using psychedelics on children. Now I will tell you that I have two teenagers. My 18-year-old, when I told him, I said, I'm doing psychedelics, he said, you need to give me something. I told him I was ordering on the internet, I was going to blow out the bag. He says, Dad, for $100 I can get an ounce. What do you want? They use mushrooms. I've seen them pretty much job I'm talking about as a football player, varsity football player. He's got all these crazy friends that play violence consensually. And they use mushrooms all the time. And I think it's because it lets them go back. Because they're here. It lets them go back to here. And this area is much more fun. You have a sense of wonder and joy, and you can stare at a strobe light or a green balloon for an hour and a half and really enjoy yourself. And I think that's why they do it. Now, is it messing with their brain development? Well, here's the thing. What happens when you take magic mushrooms, if this is your serotonin receptor, right, normally it can hold
Big word.
something smaller. But you got one serotonin, comes along, and that's it. The receptor's full. When you take psilocybin, this one and all of those serotonin molecules make that thing fire at distance. It becomes far more sensitive. Now, the opposite of that is an SSRI. I tell people, go off your SSRI and do not take Adderall before the trip, because that's going to inhibit the process. An SSRI will keep this thing in the general vicinity of the chair, and the chair will hit on it every once in a while. Methamphetamines, 90 of these on one of these and burn out. Psilocybin makes it more efficient, more sensitive, so you get happy. Now, when it's doing that, the other thing that your hippocampus does is it acts as an overflow container for cortisol. Cortisol is the oh shit chemical. It's your anxious chemical. It's helpful for you to initiate tasks. You don't want to not have any. Most of us are awash. Well, when you take the psilocybin, if you can imagine a whole bunch of kettlebells stuck to this cortisol, this thing heats up and they all fall off. And all that cortisol goes back into your adrenal glands. You have an overwhelming sense of calm. For many people, it's disturbing. I'm calm, something bad is going on, and you're smiling like that means something's sneaking up on you. So what happens is then you just get used to the idea that you're not supposed to have all that cortisol in your brain. And when it begins to happen, you're like, I feel terrible. And then you do something you've never done before. I should take care of that. I should move away from the thing that makes me feel terrible. I should tell my husband that when he leaves, he use the middle of the floor, he feels like a penetrating fucking rage. Instead of keeping it to myself, I'll wait up. He leaves his shoes somewhere, and he doesn't use the cutting board, and then he does whatever else he does, and then the kids do whatever they do, and by the time it's 11 o'clock in the afternoon, all the cortisol is built up, I drop something, break something. Guess how I act? Like a fucking lunatic. And people are like, you dropped a pencil. Why did you punch a hole in the drywall? I'm like, well, it wasn't a pencil. It was what she said 2 days ago. And what they did a day ago. And the thing broke this morning. I never figured out how to process any of that. Dissociate. And then sooner or later, I reached a point where I've got enough cortisol in my system so that when you poke me, I snarl. Now, I can look hostile at a distance of 15 meters. I can make you be away from me. I can look mad. Looking hostile, menacing. I don't know I'm doing it. Because I don't have enough awareness that my cortisol's maxed out. I don't understand why people are so angry with me. I don't understand why everyone's being so rude. And psilocybin absolutely creates your sensitivity, so you just can't do it anymore. As soon as they do the thing that bugs me, I have to look at them and go, I didn't like that. See how simple that is? How many of you can actually do it? I'm not allowed to not like shit. I have to be polite, don't I? They treat young ladies to be polite. She's like, fuck, so. Right? So what we do, psilocybin enables you to like yourself enough to break rules you don't need and you should never have fucking learned. But you can't know that if you've been nervous all the time. So, in one sense, it relieves you, and in another sense, it makes you far more sensitive. And those things are all healthy. Ibogaine is a psychedelic potato that we like to use. I have not been able to get a hold of it. I'd love to. They do stream state. You can have as much as 4 months of neuroplasticity after that. If you just wanted to learn, if you want to get a master's degree, you drop some ibogaine and go to school. Because now you're like a 7-year-old where you can just absorb information. LSD and MDMA and psilocybin, 2 to 3 weeks. Still a very intense experience in the front, long trailing afterwards. And things like ketamine are anesthetics. So it works to stop the cortisol from impacting you. You get real calm. In fact, we used to call it chemical restraint. Like if you're acting real crazy, real life with some ketamine. You ain't be crazy anymore. And it's great. You ketamine somebody, and you can talk about the terrible thing that happened. Maybe they got beaten down by their parents, or maybe they got raped, or maybe they had somebody kill themselves in front of them. I've had all those things in my office. And if you have somebody who has ketamine, they can talk about it without disassociating, which is great for processing. Psilocybin stops you from being able to talk about it and simply processes the trauma. It's great for people who don't want to talk in therapy. The MDMA, DMT thing wakes up your social reward system. You're a teenager and you want to make friends. I'm 56, I don't want to make friends. It's hard for me to make friends. I had to chase him around for a decade to make it stick. It's harder when you're an adult to make friends. If you're on MDMA, it's not. All of a sudden, you're just friendly. Because it keeps you from having guilt and shame, and you'll notice it all seems to be right around this period. These are the critical periods. And we have drugs now, medicines, that will help you reopen them. And then we can fix what happened. We won't change what happened. We'll just make it so you don't blame yourself for it. My parents didn't love me. Kids blame themselves. Someone died. They blame themselves. They don't know any better. So, again, the plasticity effects are great. There are several different kinds of medicines available. Ketamine is great for processing. Psilocybin and LSD and ibogaine are great for resolving early trauma. And the therapy experience that you should have is you should expect to be someone very safe with a blindfold, with a playlist of some kind running in the background, and some adult counselor kind of person who should be with you the entire time. Anybody who says, hey, here's 5 grand, you go home and watch the Lego movie, that's not fucking therapy. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about microdosing and, obviously with more heroic dose therapy, but what about like just everyday movements for like anxiety disorders, PTSD? Do you find coupling that with microdosing?
So there's a guy named Paul Stamets. Have you ever heard of him? So the Stamets stack is pretty popular in microdosing, and I am not an expert on it. I'm an expert on a bunch of things like domestic violence, brain development, and psilocybin therapy. Microdosing I'm not, so I will pretend. However, I will say this. Constantly keeping a low level of plasticity in your brain is not harmful. Alzheimer's, dementia or failure of plasticity in the brain. Either it's metaplastic, which means like it doesn't scheme, or it's rigid. So my belief is that microdosing will probably be the answer to people who have a history of Alzheimer's in their family, and I think it's probably a good thing to do. The process I'm talking about is more like surgery. You're taking wellness medicines to help you maintain your mood. The thing I'm doing is getting in there and really cleaning the area out and giving you a reset. So yeah, I would go with microdosing. That seems pretty reasonable.
Experience with psilocybin in conjunction with EMDR therapy.
So that is an interesting process. However, in EMDR, the purpose, and I do a lot of PTSD with children and with veterans. EMDR, I am distracting your conscious mind with either you watching or tapping or with the, like, it's a feedback mechanism that keeps the manager off to the side. It keeps the firefighter off to the side so that you can just touch the thing that bothers you. And we do it over and over, and it has the same impact that we would with psilocybin. But I might have to do 20 or 30 sessions, and here's the shit show. I don't know if I'm working on the primary fucking problem. I work on the presenting problem, which links to something else, which links to something else. I'm going to pick something 50 fucking items from the actual problem. But you can't tell me what the problem is because you can only tell me when you're experiencing distress. And then if you have somebody who's been doing it for 15 years, they listen to what you say. Oh, that sounds like a 2-year-old. But if not, we're just starting with, that's when I see yellow Mustangs, I feel a sense of panic. So using it with psilocybin means I would have to have you I would probably use headphones. I haven't done that, but it would have to go tap, tap. Like the music would have to go from one side to the other. And the other thing is your conscious mind isn't on the playing field anymore. So I'm not sure what that will do, but it is an interesting idea. Yeah, I'm not sure, because usually in EMDR, even if you're not talking to me, you have to be able to focus on me. I mean, I've had 5 rants, I've had 3, it's real hard. Most of my clients say, you were coming in and out. I was like, I was coming in and out. What do you mean? Well, sometimes you're there and sometimes you weren't. I was sitting in that chair for Are you kidding me? So, I think the EMDR beforehand might help set and setting, so that when we did the trip, you would be more focused on the process.
Fair enough. And then this would be the surgery to like get past the finish line on everything, essentially. That's
Yes.
your building up. Okay.
Yeah, you could EMDR your way up to that, maybe do 2 or 3 sessions where we talk about, what's the thing that's panicking you, what's the setting event, how are you, usually with trauma, it's an image, not a movie. Like I see the kitchen floor, what's on? Blood. How do you feel? I feel like I'm going to vomit. What's happened? Nothing. I don't know. It's a picture and feeling. And you can do that work and then roll into psilocybin. And I suspect that would probably be a good protocol to begin with. Yeah. I use CBT. And usually I have pretty good work with that because we build certain code words. We get used to saying the same thing over and over again, and then I repeat that during the session. So if you can't feel disappointed, I say that must feel disappointing. And over and over, you're like, oh, that's disappointment. I numbed that out. I only feel rage. So yeah, I think that would be a useful tool. Any other questions or statements, ideas? Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming today and listening to me. I appreciate you taking time out of your day, and I hope this is useful to you in your own mental health and it helps you make decisions so that your life will be better. I do think that this is going to go all over the country. It might take a few years, but I will guarantee you it works. Thanks, guys. Namaste.
Thank you.